Here. Godes.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Step. Check. Hershey.
Present.
Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under agenda changes this evening, we're going to move up hold on, item number, someone help me? 17, thank you, Catherine.
Which is the
The resolution for the City Council of Glenwood Springs, Colorado opposing the expansion of the mine and supporting Garfield County. We'll move that up because we have some people here that would like to speak in support of that. And then I think we're moving everything else down. We're also taking off preemptively the social media policy.
objection.
Overruled. Item 13 will be continued to a future meeting yet to be determined, one starting with a J month. Okay, any conflicts of interest on the agenda tonight from any counselors?
No.
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 All right, hearing none. Citizens appearing before council, if these are for items not appearing on the agenda, we ask you to limit the comments to 3 minutes. Come forward, state your name and address. Hearing none. We will go to council comments.
Are we using what machine
Yes,
today?
we're using the black box. Paula.
A couple of things. Recently, I was driving down the highway and heard some radio announcements telling people that the Affordable Care Act is now open for people to register, and they only have a short time. And there is not much advertising from the federal government, so I just want to make sure that people are aware of that they can, at this point in time, be signing up for Affordable Care Act if they need that for their health insurance. And
So Paul, do you want to direct ask staff to do some of that?
I would like staff to consider maybe helping with public announcements for that, maybe in a newsletter or something along that line.
Excuse me.
I'm seeing all of you shake your head, so
Yep.
yes.
That'd be great.
On
That'd be
Facebook
great.
or something.
Yep.
Yeah. That would be great. Thank you, Charlie. And then the other thing is I was fortunate this morning to be able to go to a presentation by Youth Zone that they had in Aspen, and they're having another one in Newcastle tomorrow. And the presentation is called Tall Cop. And what he does is he talks about, the name of his presentation is Hiding in Plain Sight, and it talks about substance use, particularly youth, and the ways that kids can access drugs right now, what's going on with substance use and abuse, and what communities can do. And I would really suggest that if people have that opportunity to attend one of these presentations, and the one tomorrow is at Newcastle at Coleridge High School. A lot of valid information and some stuff that I would like to see a future presentation from Tall Cop to some government entities to look at some of the legal stuff that we might consider, like the fact that right now youth at 18 years old can currently get a medical health card and get marijuana, even though the legal age for recreational use is 21. So I don't know, Carl, if there's something that we could look at legal-wise in the future, or if that's at state level, but
Yeah, so,
Amendment 64.
yeah, unfortunately, implementation of that particular provision regarding medical is a constitutional amendment, so it's probably outside our purview to change. But we can certainly take a look at what we could do or how we could encourage the legislature if they have any ability.
okay. And then the other part of that they kind of brought up was advertising marijuana and the way that cities administer that, even if it's just what kind of signage is out on their buildings and stuff, and maybe that's something we can consider in the future as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilor Voorhees.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. A week ago, last Monday night, Imagine Glenwood had a very large turnout for a community meeting that was, I think, very productive. We talked about the city's strategic vision for openers, and then we had some detailed information that was presented about various things that the city is doing in the community, and well-attended. And so I want to thank those who participated, and especially the leadership for Imagine Glenwood for getting that done. A second thing I wanted to mention was Tuesday night's favorable vote on the library district, which I think is a move forward in the right direction. It was sort of a close vote, but it got wider as the evening went on. I think 700 vote margin seems to stick in my mind right now, but so we can count on a thriving community, not just Glenwood, but throughout Garfield County, having libraries with restored hours, and I think that'll mean a lot to our citizens.
Thank you. Councilor Hershey.
Council Hershey?
Councilor Hershey.
Hey, I know that Charlie and Paula and Shelley know where I live, and Jonathan has never come over, so he doesn't. But I often walk to work, and I was crossing by the old CMC building at 9th and Grand, and you know the signage there is good, and I'm glad Lieutenant Kimino is here. But the light turns green, it's a long wait, and then it says walk, and then someone just makes a right turn and almost hit me. And this is not a one-time thing. I know it's just not just anecdotal. A lot of people, and this goes to the Imagine Glenwood thing, complain on stop signs and that people don't stop. And this is not just a law enforcement issue. And I really appreciate what Imagine Glenwood did with, you know, take a minute, you know, stop. This isn't the California stop where you get to glide through a stop sign. Out here, right here, you take your life into your hands at Picton and 8th Street when you cross the street. Every time. People don't stop, they go too fast. I think it's, you know, CDOT couldn't put up any more signage to yield to pedestrians in crosswalks, but if we want to encourage people, Mr. Mayor, to walk and use public transportation and not drive, we have to make it safe for them to walk to work or to not stop. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't think it's more enforcement by the Glenwood PD. They do a great job, but maybe some sort of public education campaign in conjunction with Imagine Glenwood. Maybe Rick and I could think of something where, because he's an educator, where we could just, I think a positive thing to people just to slow down. There's no rush. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Councilor Willman.
Thank you. I want to add to what Rick and Paul actually reminded me. I think we should congratulate the mayor and city attorney for bringing to our attention the problem with underage smoking and things like that. And I'm proud to say that by a large margin, the cigarette tax and the tobacco tax passed. And I want to appreciate you guys bringing that to our attention so we could begin working on that project. The other thing I want to say, I mentioned it in the earlier work session, but just for the general public, is Transportation Commission met this past week, and the topic of discussion was snow removal. And the recommendation of the council, and is currently in the budget for this coming year, is to maintain the snow removal in the same method we did last year. We are going to be looking at maybe enhancing that further in later years, and Matt Langhorst is going to bring some stuff back to the Transportation Commission at their next meeting. So, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Charlie. I have a couple things. Thank you for bringing that up about the tax that passed. I think that was a lot of work from all of us on licensing, flavor ban, raising the age to 21. You know, there's so few things that we get to do up here that really move the needle without costing us a lot of money. And I think that that's one thing. And other than raising the age to 21 and the flavor ban, it's really the community that showed up and voted for this. So I want to thank the community for voting for that and really understanding the dangers that we're facing with vaping and taking a vote for our kids in our community. We had a great meeting, a joint Planning and Zoning and Housing Commission meeting a couple of weeks ago. I think a lot of people left that really excited to get involved. I just wanted to say a couple things about a few of the things that were discussed and hopefully continue to keep that energy and move things along. Some of the things like looking at how we do our ADUs, if we are allowing enough flexibility with that, the setback distance, if our setback is enough, especially in the downtown area, if it's too rigid, if we can't have some flexibility to that, some maybe moderate changes to that. We talked at length about a density bonus, about how do we get more people on lots in a way that honors the neighborhoods. And then we also talked about some of these pretty large parcels in town. The URA, the West Glenwood Mall, the Vogler Park area around City Hall that we can develop and potentially put some pretty high-density residential units. So I was really excited to be a part of that. I know a lot of, actually all of us, except Shirley, who's out of the country and would have been there. I know she would have been there had we not had it. But thank you very much for everybody showing up to that. And I know that meant a lot to Planning and Zoning and the Housing Commission as well. And then one thing I wanted to get, I didn't have time to do it before when we were doing our comments, but we're going to be having a couple, I want to get some direction from you guys. We're going to have a couple grant asks from us as a city, and these are specific to one-time asks for one-time projects. And I know we have had asks like that, and usually I think our instinct is, well, let's have the Financial Advisory Board weigh in on it. But it seems to me, and I will defer to Paula and Charlie, who are the liaisons to the Financial Advisory Board, it seems like that board is really good, that subcommittee that meets is really good about allocating continuing grants, operating grants, programming grants on a continual basis. But it seems like there's a little bit more, I don't know, anxiety, or it doesn't fit really well in their box when someone comes to us and asks us for $30,000 or $40,000 or $10,000 is the case of COMOM, the Mission of Mercy, a couple months ago. And so I didn't know, I just wanted to ask you guys what you thought, because we will be hearing a presentation tonight, and I would think they will come back and probably have a financial ask. Is that something we want to see here, these one-time, and then it never comes before us again, ask, and then we say, yeah, that sounds about right. Deborah, how do we make this work? Maybe we take it from this pot or not. Or do we want to put all the ask onto the Financial Advisory Board? I guess I'm just looking for opinions or consensus on that.
I guess I'll speak in first. I think most things should go through the Financial Advisory Board. I think there will be occasional things where, like the dental thing, it was just kind of a last-minute thing. They were working a lot of other things, and that's the kind of thing we ought to be looking at. But it ought to be, we didn't just wait till the last minute or we forgot to apply. But there will be emergency things, that we may want to, not emergency, but things that come up during the year that weren't anticipated. Other than that, I think we ought to have the Financial Advisory Board look at it. And I think, Steve Boyd could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was kind of the consensus of the Financial Advisory Board, too. Yes, no?
I'm sorry, I can hear what you're saying.
Oh, never mind. Go back to sleep. No, I'm kidding.
Well, and the reason I asked is we struggled, I think, on the Financial Advisory Board. I'd say not me, but when we brought the youth zone debt retirement question to Financial Advisory, the first question they said was, isn't this a council decision? And so I guess that's where this is coming from me.
And I think if the Financial Advisory Board gets something like that, and they think it's more of a political or a bigger decision they want to make, they can just say, we don't want to have a recommendation, and send it down to us that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be out of the Financial Advisory Board's funding pot, basically, for grants, that if City Council took over those decisions, is that where that funding would come from?
I think that would be up to us. I think if somebody came before us and asked for a one-time grant and it fit kind of within the scope of that, then maybe, and maybe if it fits in with the scope of another pot of money, potentially. And I think that
would kind of be a call bringing Deborah into the conversation on where
Yeah.
the money and funding might be available? Is that?
I would say if you wanted to take it from somewhere other than BAP, we should give you a recommendation on where to.
Okay.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, I just think it would strengthen the role of the Financial Advisory Board to consider all requests for money. I know that a lack of planning sometimes shouldn't create a catastrophe for people, but it often does. And folks come up and they say, gosh, I got this great idea, and it's like 3 weeks away. Well, my suggestion is that great idea probably was, 55 weeks away, and we had some sort of process by which, individuals and groups that were worthy could, first come to the Financial Advisory Board and plead their case, or sort of adhere to a calendar that was, a little bit more rational in nature, I think that would be, make me feel more comfortable about sort of these one-off requests.
Shelley?
And I guess I would kind of agree with Charlie too, that I think the system we have right now is working pretty well. If we do have people that come in and they've missed the whole grant deadline, it's later in the year, like the dental event that took place, they can come to council and request funds, and if we still have funding left in the grant pool, we can let those funds go. So I guess I tend to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It didn't work.
No, thank you,
No,
Charlie.
I would support you, Mr. Mayor, if they're one-offs, to be flexible. Sometimes people don't plan well, these are nonprofits. I understand what happened with you, so I didn't participate. But, sometimes things come up, I don't think it ever hurts just to listen briefly. You can always say no.
Yeah, usually they got 3 minutes, and this is more direction for Deborah, because I know Deborah gets hit all the time. And, for Deborah to be able to say, you know what, that, for the 3 or 5 minutes to present to council, have them at crack, the worst thing that could happen is you get referred to the Financial Advisory Board, or that seems like something that could happen because, our grant application, right now anyway, is 4 months from now, so.
I think what I heard was pretty much take it to FAB. Unless
I think
it
it's use your
is super
discretion.
special.
Yeah,
Who decides that it's super special?
that, I think our staff does.
Perfect.
All right. All right, any other council comments? All right. Next item is the consent agenda.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda with the one change to 2020 on the IGA and item D.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Item number 8, I'm sorry. This is item number 17 that's been moved up, a resolution of the City Council of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, opposing the expansion of the mine and supporting Garfield County.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What you have before you is resolution, I got to push my button. Resolution 2019-41. I did hand out a slightly revised version, sort of updating the narrative and strengthening the language. As you know, council has been soliciting and has received the support of a number of surrounding communities regarding supporting Garfield County and opposing the expansion of the mine, the quarry up on the mountain over Glenwood Springs by a California-based company, RMR. And one thing that we had not done in sort of closing that loop was bring back to this council a formal resolution supporting Garfield County as well as stating your opposition to the mine very clearly. That's what this resolution does. I'm not going to read through the whereas clauses, but I would say really 3 things in the resolution. One is that asking BLM to take action consistent with a series of letters that the city has sent on May 7th, May 23rd, and June 13th, 2019, and those letters really outlined being fair in process, taking appropriate actions underneath NEPA, really holding the line on appropriate process, as well as taking action for current violations that are occurring under their federal permits as well. The other one is formally declaring its opposition to the mine expansion and supporting Garfield County's demand that RMR comply with local regulation, county resolutions, and their special use permit. Recognizing, I know the public knows this, but just to reiterate, there was a hearing on a notice of violation. A couple hundred citizens attended that hearing. The representatives of RMR stood up at that hearing and said, we are going to be good neighbors, we are going to work on resolving these issues. 5 days later, they filed suit, I believe it was 5 days later, they filed suit in both federal and state court, alleging that Garfield County had no authority to regulate them whatsoever. I think that is indicative of being a good neighbor. And then the third thing is directing staff to pursue any and all methods to oppose the mine expansion. Obviously, we've been working hard on all fronts. to make sure that this is a fair and appropriate process, but really, it's become clear that it's going to take everything we have, and we need to do that on behalf of our citizens. So that's the resolution you have in front of you. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there might be some audience members here as well. But with that, I'd ask for you to take it up.
And just to be clear, Carl, this is the final resolution, but has everyone seen that in the
I don't
public?
know that they have. I tried to hand it out to a couple of people in the audience. The updated resolution.
Because I know it was just finished this afternoon.
Yeah, it was cleaned up a little bit. I tried to make the narrative better. You know, lawyers, we're always encouraging.
I don't know that.
Are there any questions for staff
I'm
from
sorry.
council?
Could I
That was
ask
my
Deborah
question.
one?
That's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, ask the city manager, how many of our sister cities have joined us in this resolution?
I believe Rifle, Silt, Newcastle, Carbondale, Snowmass Village, Basalt. We go talk to Aspen and
Eagle County.
Eagle County next week, and then Pitkin County has as well. Did I miss anybody?
Yes.
No, I think that's-
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? All right, we need to open this up to, I think we're going to open this up to public comment. Go ahead, Jeff?
Good evening. My name is Jeff Peterson, 607 Harvard Drive. I just want to start by thanking you guys for all the efforts you have made as a city, the staff, Ms. Figueroa, Mr. Hanlon, and council members alike on pushing back with this. I'm a member of the Glenwood Springs Citizens Alliance, and we view this as a serious threat to our community with long-lasting implications. We represent or have had more than almost 2,000 residents sign a petition opposing this and have a couple hundred businesses on board as well. So your efforts are much appreciated. Your attention to this matter is much appreciated, and what you're doing is much appreciated. So thank you. Please move forward with this resolution as worded.
Thank you for your time too, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for everything you're doing, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Former Mr. Mayor Leo McKinney.
Can we?
I didn't see that hand.
I gotta tell you, I
keep it
come in
brief,
this
though.
room and I feel like I really want some peanut M&Ms. It's really candy. I gave them up after I left. No, seriously though, I just wanted to take a moment and thank you personally. I'd like to reiterate everything Jeff said and maybe put a little stamp on it, leave it a little bit more, and just say that this resolution really draws a line in the sand, but you guys didn't draw that line. The company up on the hill drew that line. And it's pretty obvious which side you need to be on. So I appreciate your efforts on this. I appreciate working with you as we move forward, and I hope you guys all support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
Thanks, Leo.
Yes.
Mary Steinbrecher, 611 Harvard Drive, past council member. So I just want you to know, or just remember, and Tony remembers this, but we haven't had all the entities from Aspen to Rifle on our side since we did RAFTA. Congratulations.
Really, if you count the commissioners from Garfield County.
Yes, and we've got the commissioners this time, so excellent job. Thank you for going to all the communities and getting us all working together on this project. RAFTA was a huge deal. This is going to be a huge deal, too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Anybody else from the public to speak on this? All right, thank you very much for your comments. We'll bring it back to council for comments and/or motion. Councilor Willman.
I move that we approve, gotta get the top of this, resolution number 2019-41, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, against the expansion of the Mid-Continent Quarry, AKA the Transfer Trail Mine, and supporting county regulation of the mine, and approve it by acclamation.
Been moved by Charlie, seconded by Rick. Further conversation?
We're using the box, right?
Yes. Shelley.
I would just like to say thank you to staff for updating this resolution. And to the citizens and residents of Glenwood Springs, it states in the resolution, and I think everyone needs to know, that the RMR mine expansion is the biggest threat to our quality of life in Glenwood Springs, to our health and safety, and to the very future of our city. And we need all of our citizens to get involved and to contact the BLM, to contact your state and other representatives, and let them know that this is a threat to our city and that we are against the mine expansion. So I'm happy to support this resolution tonight, and thank you for updating it.
I think, Tony,
I didn't,
you
no, I'm
pushed.
good.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Any other comments? All right, let's call the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hershey, yes. Stepp, yes. Godes, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woolman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Citizens Alliance, for all you're doing. This is heavy lifting, and we can't do it alone. It takes a citizen's voice, and thank you very much for your work.
It takes like the whole community and the entire valley.
Yeah. All right, we'll go back to item number 8, letter of support, Sweetwater Lake.
How do I get this to project? If you don't mind. I love technology. Great, thank you. Okay. Well, thank you. My name is Jim Doss. I'm the Executive Director of the Eagle Valley Land Trust over in Edwards, Colorado. Thank you for having us here tonight. We're going to be presenting to you about the Sweetwater Lake Save the Lake project, but first I wanted to just give a quick introduction to who we are and why we're here. So we are the local land trust over in Eagle County, and our mission is to protect forever the lands we love for building a permanent legacy for future generations. Much like Aspen Valley Land Trust over here in your valley, an important partner of ours and supporter of ours. We work to provide public access in our communities, protect vital habitat, scenic beauty, as well as agricultural heritage. We are a nationally accredited land trust and have been around for 35 years. I wanted to also thank Deborah and Sarah for helping out facilitating our presenting here. It went very smoothly, which is great. And just a little note about our work with Aspen Valley Land Trust in collaboration. Where our areas tend to abut, we coordinate very carefully with them. They're just absolutely great partners. It made most sense for us to work on this project, although it is technically in eastern Garfield County. Our watersheds don't really follow those straight lines that I don't remember who it was, created for our county boundaries. So that's why we are here today. We have a letter of support from Aspen Valley Land Trust for this project. I wanted to introduce to you Bergen Josem from Eagle Valley Land Trust. He's our development and communications manager who will be talking to you about Sweetwater Lake. And while he's doing that, I will be passing out flyers, and we have a sign-up sheet for Friends of Sweetwater Lake. So if you all would like to sign up, I'll just be passing that around. Thank you.
Sweet. All right. Yeah, thank you again for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. Just kind of so I can get an idea, how many of you all have been to Sweetwater Lake? That's a pretty good number. And then how about from the crowd, how many of you have been to Sweetwater Lake? Still a pretty good number. Well, Sweetwater Lake, as many of you know, is a hidden gem of our community, of our larger community. It is in Garfield County, but it's accessed from all around, from the north, south, east, west. And we now find ourselves in a very important and exciting conservation opportunity. So about 10 years ago, a developer bought this property, which kids and adults and families have been enjoying for literally decades, maybe even 100 years, and it's been a gathering place for longer than that. development company purchased this property with the intention to build a resort. So that included a golf course. There was talk of a bottling plant, water bottling plant, but also luxury homes, and there was not in that plan any planning for public access to this beautiful lake. So let me just see if I can get a good picture. So when they figured out that the development plan was basically falling through, it wasn't going to work out, they decided they're going to sell it. But first they closed public access to this lake. Luckily, the Conservation Fund, which is a national conservation organization, secured a contract to purchase this property. They partnered with us. We're the local conservation organization, and so now we are working together with them to make sure that this property is conserved. So here's a couple more pictures of it. It's a 488-acre property. The lake itself is 77 acres, and yes, the lake is actually part of this property. And as you can see, it's quite a big property, and it's got a lot of important features. It is surrounded by the White River National Forest, and it is one of the key access points to the Flat Tops Wilderness, and one of the only ways to get there from Garfield County is on horseback. So it's a really important horseback riding opportunity in our community. So, yeah, and again, generations of families from around here have been enjoying this lake and the amenities it provides. Just cool pictures. We've seen overwhelming support of this project so far. There's also a Ute cave on the property that is at risk of being closed down to the public, which contains some of the only pictographs in our region of the Ute, which is very significant. And another important piece of this property is that it is open, or it is one of the only natural lakes that could be open year-round to the public, so you've got a picture of people ice fishing out there. So this is the sign that is currently up there. The current owners wanted to, basically because of the risk, they closed off public access. And so everybody who's gone up there, school groups who wanted to go up there, they can't because it is closed. So we are working with the Conservation Fund to purchase this property. Now, if we can, it's about a $9.5 million property, project, I should say. And we have, tomorrow, we're sending an application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is an allocation from Congress that is generated by offshore oil and gas royalties. We're asking for about $6 million from them, which is a significant chunk of change. That's more than they would normally fund, but this is a very, very competitive property and project. So we are confident that we'll get some pretty major funding from them. To basically make our application to the Land and Water Conservation Fund more competitive, we need letters of support and pledges. And again, tonight, I'm only here to ask you for a letter of support of this project, but it will help boost our application and be nationally competitive. So yeah, so that basically, if we can get that $6 million from this Land and Water Conservation Fund, we'll have about a $3.5 million gap that we need to fill. So far, we've raised about $137,000 in pledges and grants from private individuals. And we have a couple years to gather that money. Here are a list of our partners, and this is growing by the hour. Significantly today, we just got, and they're not even on this slide because it was so recent, Senator Bennett, Senator Gardner, and Representative Tipton all showed their support for this, wrote a letter of support for this project. Garfield County is in support. The towns of Eagle and Gypsum are also in support of this project and have written letters of support. I guess the last piece, I don't know if I had mentioned this earlier, I don't think I did. Once this property is purchased by the Conservation Fund, it will then be transferred to the Forest Service to be integrated into the White River National Forest, which is the surrounding land. And there will be a special permit to operate the amenities there. So here is a list of our partners. So again, the question here is, will you provide a letter of support of this project? Paula.
So I know, just having visited myself, there's a campground on the dam side, and that was also part of the property?
No, that's actually a Forest Service
That's what I
property.
thought.
Yeah, so that's still operating. That's White River National Forest. that campsite will remain open pretty much regardless, but the access that provides to the lake is very, very limited. It's all covered in reeds. There's not actually a beach. There's no real dock. So it doesn't really provide great or safe public access.
And what do you guys see as, like, I know that there are cabins and there's a dining area, a restaurant kind of thing. What do you guys foresee as the kind of development that would happen once it would go under Forest Service jurisdiction?
So when we're applying for this, one of the pieces is that the forest can't take any kind of preconditions, but I guess we'd imagine, I don't know for sure, that it would look similar. There would need to be somebody would need to apply to be have the resort permit, basically. But it would probably look similar to what it is now. I don't know about the buildings or the restaurant. That's kind of up to the Forest Service. So I guess the main priority at this point is to first get the property conserved and then work through public comment to figure that next step out.
And is there any opportunity in the future as a state monument or something along that line that the state would actually get involved in?
Interesting. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not being talked about at this time, so be interested to hear your ideas.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilor Hershey.
Did Paula ask where I wasn't clear on the restaurant that was there? I was talking to your cohort there, and it had been closed, and now it's being reopened and run by somebody else, but that's an issue here. How?
Currently, Adrienne Brink runs the restaurant up there. Right, and she's on our Sweetwater committee.
Right.
It's closed now to the public. The ideal situation would be that would reopen, but there's no promise of that. Again, when it goes to the Forest Service, it's kind of up to them how they manage the risk and property in that sense.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the presenters?
Just one quick one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
A $3.5 million gap is what you have right now, and I really hope that you can raise that, but I was wondering if you could give us a little overview about how you plan to fill that gap.
So we're basically starting to right now collect pledges, which can be paid over 2 or 3 years. We're going to make asks we're going to ask the town of Gypsum next week for funding, and then the town of Eagle as well. The Conservation Fund is working closely with Eagle County to figure out how they can contribute. It's technically in Garfield County, like I said, so we can't use Open Space Fund. But then we have a handful of different grants opportunities that we're looking into, but a lot of it is going to be hopefully from private individuals and families who care about the area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you very much. All right, is there any people from the public that would like to comment on this? I see none. Oh, sorry. We could, but.
My name's Janet Rivera. I'm kind of representing my family. My daughter, Autumn Rivera, is a science teacher at the middle school here in town, but she's at a conference in Denver presenting today and couldn't come. So I told her I would come speak for us. We're hoping that you will write a letter supporting Sweetwater Lake being added to White River National Forest. Sweetwater Lake's located 38 miles from Glenwood Springs. It's the second largest natural lake in Garfield County. Now you're all thinking, what's the largest? What's the largest? Any guesses?
Trappers?
Trappers, yeah, okay. Besides what they've talked about, Sweetwater Lake's amazing scenic beauty, the historic significance, the Ute Cave, there are only 2 Ute caves that we know with pictographs total. So it's really very special, and the Ute tribe is aware of what we're doing here and interested in, having a foot in whatever happens here. Sweetwater Lake, of course, is an important wildlife habitat. There are elk, deer, calving, osprey, eagle nests. I could list all the wildlife, the historical significance and the natural beauty. But the question is, why should Glenwood Springs say that they agree with this? Sweetwater Lake is a crucial part of the Colorado River watershed. As a natural lake, it provides important riparian zone, which aids in water filtering, and you guys are downstream from that. So it's always important to protect that. Glenwood Springs and the current concessionary that you've talked about, Sweetwater Lake Resort, have close ties. Tourists who come to town for a full week often venture up to the lake for a change of scenery, a horseback ride, or just to eat some of the homemade pie and look at the hummingbirds on the deck. Meanwhile, visitors who come to Sweetwater Lake for a week usually come down here to go to the hot springs or to the caves or the adventure park. Fishermen, whether fishing from the lake in a boat or ice fishing in the wintertime, have to buy their supplies. They come to Glenwood to get that before head up. Hunters who hunt in the area also have to outfit before they go up. There aren't any stores on Sweetwater. Recognizing the close relationship between Sweetwater and Glenwood, A.J. Brink Outfitters has been a member of the chamber for over 20 years, of your chamber, because it's such a close relationship. Also, of course, they buy their groceries here in town. Sweetwater Lake has played host to some of your school groups, your scout groups, your 4-H groups, and so forth. We think it would be great to be able to keep access open for these types of activities. And remember, while we're preserving the lake, we're also promoting access. We're not just looking at the beautiful lake that's conserved that we can't use. This is for public access that we're asking for. For the last 2 years, this has been closed to the public as the current owners try to sell it. If you ventured up that way, you were greeted by a locked gate. The boat rental, the restaurant, the campground cabins, and access to the caves are all closed. The owners have been hoping to sell it to developers. Please consider writing your letter of support from the town of Glenwood to the Forest Service, encouraging the preservation of Sweetwater Lake and reopening access permanently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Ms. Angie?
Hi, I would also just like to reiterate much of what she's just said. It's true that they have been a supporter of the Glenwood Springs Chamber for 20 plus years, and because of our close by relationship, I think it would be very beneficial to our community to support saving this lake. It'll provide expanded access to the lake. It'll open up 1.5 miles of previously unaccessible shoreline and surrounding federal land, such as the Flat Top Wilderness, which of course is right in our backyard. So the Glenwood Springs Chamber will be sending a letter in support, and I hope you will join in doing the same. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Angie. Anybody else? All right, seeing no more comments, I'll bring it back to council for a motion and/or comments. Councilor Kopp.
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the Eagle Valley Land Trust for bringing this to our attention. I've been up there before, and I've always thought of Sweetwater as a great amenity for Glenwood Springs as a recreation area, but I actually haven't been up there in the last few years, and I wasn't aware that it was closed off. And so I think this is a fantastic plan. Get it back into the public realm, put it under the White River National Forest, and I really support that. So thank you all for taking that up and taking the lead on that. And with that said, I would like to make a motion that we support and authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for the, Save the Sweetwater Lake?
I'll second that.
Okay. Well, it's been moved by Shelley and seconded by Tony.
It's Resolution
2019.
19-42.
No?
Is that the wrong
It's
one?
a letter.
No, sorry, just letter of support, sorry.
Okay, so I did have it right.
You did have it right. I screwed you up.
It's a letter of support. Okay,
That's the
so we
next
have a
one.
second on that. To further on that, I would like us to discuss if there's a way we can help fund the effort at some point. I don't know if that's appropriate to go through our grant process, or if that would be a separate idea.
I think because it's been, my opinion, is that because we have received the information to us, that I think you probably need to have some answers, and this is really outside the scope of, it's not in the city limits of Glenwood Springs, it's fairly in the county. This might be one of those weird one-offs that we would want to consider as a council. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
I would like to hear other people's opinion on that. Well,
I'd like to vote on the motion first,
Yeah,
and then.
I think
motion
that's a great
stands
idea.
on that. Okay.
is there any comments on the motion? No. Hearing none, let's call the question. Thanks for keeping me straight, Rick. No.
But I talked.
Hershey, yes. Stepp, yes. Godas, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woolman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you very much.
Let's have a 2-minute conversation. Do we want this to come back to us for a funding request? I think that would be forthcoming. Or do we want this to go to the Financial Advisory Board, just give staff direction?
Well, since it's a project that is a year or longer in duration, I'm comfortable with it going to FAB first.
Okay.
But,
I do think
as
that,
always,
I do think that before it goes to FAB, or at least in conjunction with that, we should get an opinion from council as to whether we can fund something outside the city limits like this. Already, we can, okay. I thought it was gonna take, I thought it was gonna take you like a four-page letter to get that.
There's the
done,
guy over at the Smiling Goat Ranch somewhere. I'm sorry, I had to.
In that case, I would move that we direct the staff to bring this to the attention of FAB for recommendation to council.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. All right. Item number 9, Resolution 2019-42, Resolution of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado prioritizing expenditures for the acquisition and improvement tax and bonds.
Did you put out the language for the motion? Okay. Just, you guys at a special meeting asked us, after talking about A&I, to bring back a resolution kind of laying out how you wanted to spend A&I into the future. This resolution is an attempt to capture what we think you meant. Catherine printed out what the motion was, and I think you all have it. And with that, we're going to step back and let you talk.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paula, for leading us off.
Well, I'm glad to lead it off. I understand that we passed a vote on some of the portions of A&I and what we were going to do in that joint session, but I feel that this resolution should be more concentrated on what that vote was. There are elements in here that I'm concerned on that we haven't even discussed yet, like funding for 6th Street and what we want to do there, and I think that's going to take some discussion in special session with council, work session, or at least a time to discuss it on what we want to do with 6th Street and where we want to go with it, rather than adding it into this at this point in time at this amount of money. There are other parts in here that we've already approved, and I don't mind them being in there, but at the same time, I feel like it's limiting us and it's limiting future councils by putting some set amounts in here that I'm not quite ready to say, yeah, this is the way I want to go. And then I'm hoping that Rick will also address what he addressed earlier in a work session as far as the wording of this and how confining it might be.
The only thing I wanted to say, Paula, just so you know, is that this is a resolution. It is more of an aspirational statement than anything. You guys can change it tomorrow if you hold a special meeting and change it. So it doesn't actually, you can't actually legally bind a future council to doing something. This is just your vision. If you end up passing something, it's your vision of how you think it should play out over the next coming years. But either this council or another council can change that completely.
Okay.
Councilman Willman.
We had an extensive discussion in our meeting, a special meeting on this, whatever it was, I guess we got to hear September 20th. I had asked since the beginning, since I had come on council, that we look at determining whether monies from the A&I could or should be used for things other than those things listed in the approval, understanding there's some fuzziness in that language. It certainly was the intent of the voters and the sale of the A&I, and I worked on Committee on the Move on this project. The monies be spent in these areas. I think that our commitment on September 20th was to spend the money in this fashion, understanding that if there was a major recession or something else, that we may have to relook at it. But I move for the approval of resolution 2019-42, a resolution of City Council, City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, prioritize expenditures from the acquisition and improvements tax of bonds.
Been moved by Charlie. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Other conversation? Councilor Con.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. And I'm this close to seconding your motion. I only have a couple of concerns and just wordsmithing that I'd like to put in here. I believe Rick Voorhees might be speaking to some concerns on the Southbridge wording and just the fact that it talks about the city, let's see, putting away reserving 20 million in bond capacity for Southbridge. I think since we are putting this out as a public resolution, it might be good to put that into context of the fact that that's not enough funding to build that project. That's actually a, 40 to $60 million project, depending on where we're going to come out, and that we will need partners for that, so that that's seen as we're reserving that as the minimum city contribution at this point. So I don't know if that's a wordsmithing that we could add in there.
What's your suggestion? Because I agree that was our intent when we did this, this was to enhance, make it known to everybody that we're committed to spending this money, so what?
Right.
what
So
wording are you
maybe something to say, reserving 20 million in bond capacity for the city of Glenwood Springs portion of construction of the Southbridge project.
I'm fine with that.
I am fine, as well as a second.
Okay.
I would add to that, or I can jump in just for a quick second without hitting my light. Well, I guess my light's on, but.
That's good to you, Shelley?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we need to insert the word partnership in there.
Partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of as a highlight, because it's
In
really
paragraph
obvious
two.
that the city of Glenwood, unless, something of biblical proportions happens, we'll never be able to afford Southbridge. And if we don't have the partners, we're not going to be able to do that. And I'm just saying that, we all know that, but, people
So we could
at
say,
home.
so how about reserving 20 million in bond capacity for Southbridge as the city's portion of construction,
given
given other
appropriate partnerships who will assist in the construction.
Partnerships with other public entities.
Yes.
Exactly. That would be great. Would that meet your needs?
So
Okay.
amended.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had one other, on number 1, it says commencing construction of Southbridge by 2025. I guess that's okay. I was going to change that to no later than 2025, but
I'm sorry, change to what?
no later than 2025, but I guess by is
Yeah, I
close
think
enough. Okay, and then the only other thing that I had was number 8. It says 3.1 million of current revenues for the Two Rivers Park restoration. And we had at that same meeting, Charlie, we had quite a conversation about possibly taking some monies out of Capital Projects Fund to fund a portion of Two Rivers Park, just because the Two Rivers Park project is depleting basically all of our reserves, I believe, in A&I. And there are some reserves and some restricted reserves that are still in the Capital Projects Fund. So we could potentially take, say, 300,000 for the Two Rivers Park project out of the Capital Projects Fund, and that would leave us some funds in A&I to put towards, to just have some
Right.
cushion.
Can I ask staff a question on that? Do you have a recommendation on why we would or would not do that?
I don't know that it makes that much difference to us. Right now, we've got $68,000 in this budget being transferred out of the capital projects fund and into A&I that's included in that 3.1 million. But if you guys wanted to change that number, I think it's okay.
And part of the reasoning of why I would advocate for that is that that would allow us to put that 250,000 to start that escrow account for Southbridge this year as opposed to in a later year.
So would you suggest 250,000 then as a number out of capital projects to replace current revenues?
Which is what percent of our A&I revenue? The 250,000.
That's about 5%?
5%?
No, it's more like 10.
A&I revenue
No,
is
you're right,
about
5
5
million.
million.
You're right.
Mhm, approximately a year. So I would stick with a nice round 300, and then that gives us
sure, sorry.
50,000 of
300,000.
cushion in A&I. Just again, to keep A&I from being depleted this year.
Steve, what say you?
It's okay with us, I think.
Okay.
What if we take 250,000 out of the cap projects budget? I was just trying to pull it up. What does that leave us in reserves, assuming the 70 was?
Well, so in capital projects, our unrestricted fund balance is about $850,000. We're forecasting at the end of next year.
Say that again. Before what?
850,000 unrestricted.
Means he has to get up.
It's not to put you on the spot or
No, that's fine.
anything.
So at the end of next year, we're forecasting to have an unrestricted fund balance in capital projects of about $850,000. And like I said, that includes $68,000 coming out in the 2020 budget and going into the A&I fund, right?
Okay,
So $68,000 is already being allocated to Two Rivers Park.
So maybe we only add an additional 250 instead of an additional 300. Would that work?
Charlie?
Work here.
I'm just concerned about drawing down our capital projects fund from, say, 800,000 at the end of the year, Steve,
Yeah.
down to 550,000. I just don't think that's a good idea.
Oh, can we, just for point of clarification, can we not use A&I if we need to, the 250,000 on most capital projects next year, if we'd want?
No, I mean, I think we've got some flexibility there. Yeah, if you guys wanted to do that. There are things that we spend money in capital projects for that the A&I fund could pay for.
And part of the reasoning on that is just that typically park improvement projects are funded out of capital projects funds. So I've been a little bit curious as to why all of Two Rivers is coming out of A&I as opposed to partially out of capital projects. So this kind of, for me, makes it more palatable.
No, I understand what you're saying, Sean. I'm not disagreeing. My concern is, we have some other money coming into this 3.1 million. There's some money potentially coming from Hot Springs Pool, and isn't there some money? There's another.
60,000.
Pardon?
60,000.
From the pool.
Yes.
And I thought there was some other money that was.
Grant money?
Yeah, grant money or something supposed to go into this.
There's a minor amount of grant money, I think just over 100,000.
I'm sorry, how much?
I think just over 100, like
Is that a
120,000.
minor amount?
Okay.
Go on.
Sorry.
And Steve,
Yeah,
Steve,
right.
Steve, what's our projected unrestricted fund balance ending in A&I at 2020, for 2020?
Let's see, so in A&I, we're projecting an unrestricted fund balance at the end of next year of 760 right now.
Is that after the 3.1 million?
Yeah.
Fully assuming the raft to sail goes through.
Well, that's true.
Right.
That's true. That does assume raft.
Assuming the raft to
The
sail
raft
goes
to
through.
sail. That has
Which I am
that
assuming
coming in.
it will.
Charlie?
I'm just not comfortable with bringing our capital projects budget down. I can't support that.
Shelley, just to get temperature, would you be willing to support the motion without that?
I have a hard time supporting all of the funding for Two Rivers Park coming out of A&I. I just feel like it's a lot of that is standard park improvements that would be funded out of capital projects, so.
All right, let's put a pin on this. Rick has been
Okay.
waiting for a second.
I haven't been waiting with bated breath. No, I just want to shift here just a little bit
You're next.
and just ensure that everybody knows that when we're talking about putting $20 million in bond capacity for Southbridge, that's not a fate certain. It's a promise, it's a possibility, but I just want to be sure everybody understands that we borrowed $20 million against the $54 million that our voters approved in 2016, and this is essentially the other half if it comes to pass. And so I think that this is sort of a call to the council then, the leadership of the city and the leadership of the council to go out and ensure that we can find partners for this. So that when we're talking about using half of the total A&I sort of benevolent voter action of 2016, that we really do have a plan for it, and that not everything that you saw that was approved by the voters, half of it is necessarily going to go for Southbridge unless we really get our act together. And it's not our act completely, it's the county, it's the federal government, it's the state government to ensure that this can happen. So that was just my editorial comment there.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. Tony.
You can put whatever in this resolution you want. It's pretty clear it doesn't really mean much. I cannot support something that talks about 6th Street until the or the business owners and landowners on that street make a decision, nothing's going to happen there. And I'm not supporting yet another beautification project like the debacle on 7th Street in order to, even by this silly resolution, Mr. Mayor, if the DDA was willing to pay for something on 6th Street, I'm open to that. I know what the voters said. The voters passed library taxes. Sometimes they vote for DD and then they vote against it. They voted down CC. Maybe in 2 years they vote for it and to de-Bruce and de-Tabor. I have to represent the people, not only what they want, but I have to use my best judgment in deciding what is best for this community. And what is best for this community is to fix our infrastructure, make sure we have law enforcement that's well funded and critical infrastructure and safety. And it's not this stuff. What Rick said is very important. He said it's promises and possibilities. And all this resolution is maybe someday in the future, in 3 years from April when I'm not here anymore, I'm sure a different city council person will sit in the seat and go, well, I want this and I want that. And maybe there'll be another vote. We've already bonded a lot of money, as Rick has said, so I'm voting no.
Shelley.
I would just like to speak to that a little bit. I think, I realize this is a resolution. It's not binding on future councils, but it does set our intention. And we've had a lot of discussion about A&I and making sure that the spending on A&I is meeting what was promised in the vote, in the language of the ballot. And I think that this does that. And as far as the 6th Street project goes, you know, we've taken over that section of Highway 6 there that used to be part of Highway 82. And it was widened, and it was, 5 lanes wide, and it was heavy traffic, as everyone remembers from that time. Now it has gone back, and we were able to put down some paint, and it's working pretty well. But it's really, that street, it's been in discussion all along that it gets some streetscaping. And I'm not talking about a $10 million beautification, but street trees and reworking curb and gutter and some nice parking in there, I think is well overdue and could do a lot to help economic development there, regardless of what the private property owners decide to do with their properties. So I think we owe it to that section of street, and that was in the bonding question to move that project forward. DDA they're going to work on the design this year, and they've talked about stepping up to help possibly fund portions of the hardscape. We'll have those conversations in future years. But this sets intention, and I'm willing to support it with the current language, even if we don't get the change on the Two Rivers Park.
And I know Charlie's button was next, and I know Charlie was about to say he was going to support it even if we did take the 250 out. Right, Charlie?
Say what? I just, and I understand what what Councilman Hershey is talking about. I understand his concerns on the amount of money spent on 7th Street, but the voters voted for these monies to be used in a certain way, and part of the pushback on the street fund tax that was in the last election was that the city was breaking its promises, and I think we have to maintain the promises that were made in the A&I fund, and I think we need to do it this way. And, you know, I'd like to look a little more into the idea of maybe someone come out of capital. I'd love to look at the capital projects budget, but for today, if we could pass this, I think I want to just think about that a little bit more.
Okay.
Maybe
and
not
I'm
the
okay
number you're
with
talking
that.
about, maybe some number. What you say makes sense. So I'm not totally, I was being a little bit, I just hadn't looked at it, so I was
Okay.
talking out of turn, so.
I'm
But if we
fine.
pass it this way, I would certainly reconsider taking some money out of capital or out of parks or somewhere to help pay for this.
Okay.
Counselor Stepp.
First, I want to be clear, I'm not opposed to doing things on 6th Street and having the city involved in that with the DDA on what goes on there. What concerns me on this is that it's on here before we've had a discussion about it. And I just feel like this is not the place to be voting on how much we're directing towards this amount without a city council discussion. And then the other part of that, and it's kind of a compliment to it, is when we have a resolution put together with 3.1 million for Two Rivers Park, and that was not what was agreed to either. So I am looking for a cleanup of this before passing it. So at this point, I can't pass it until there's a cleanup and we're brought something back that we can look at that really answers all of these things.
I'll just mention my question, or comments really quickly. Specifically, when we had this work session a month ago, I have the motion in front of me. It's motion by Councilor Davis, seconded by Councilwoman, to continue with the $2.3 million planning process for Southbridge and $2 million in reserve for 6th Street for future planning and construction. That passed unanimously. Councilor Hershey was absent. And, you know, to speak to, that this can change tomorrow. We will have another conversation. This doesn't necessarily set, at least in my eyes, it does not set a priority of 6th Street is going to happen in the next 24 months. I think we need to get some of these other critical infrastructure projects completed or initiated before we start to turn back our eyes towards a beautification project. I like this resolution as it's written. I think 6th Street was promised in that A&I tax. So I will be voting for it, and let's call the question.
Hershey, no. Stepp, no. Godas, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Otherwise, 3 is.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, item number 10, Resolution 2019-38, a resolution, City Council, City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, approving the budget for fiscal year 2020. Where's our big presentation?
I thought we already had that.
It's right here.
I didn't think you wanted to sit through the 30-minute presentation again.
I did.
You can't sit through a 30-minute meeting.
Yep, so tonight we passed the budget. The money then gets appropriated to fund that budget in the first meeting in November. And then your budget duties for 2019 are over, and we get to start again in 2020, thinking about the 2021 budget. That's the presentation.
That was a great presentation, Steve.
I can't wait.
That was amazing.
It was under 15 minutes.
It happens fast.
All right, questions for Steve? Questions for
No.
staff?
No.
All right, hearing none. We'll open it for public comment. Okay, seeing none. Bring it back to council for a motion and/or discussion. Looks like Council Wilman.
First of all, I'd like to thank staff for all the hard work they've done in putting together what I think is a real good budget. I think it's conservative, but it's also keeping Glenwood moving forward in the future, which is what we're trying to do. I'm hoping as we begin to work on a 5-year budget, also next year's budget with the 5, but we're going to even have better budgets. We've had an award-winning budget for the last couple of years, and this is another one. So I move to approve, what I'm approving, resolutions.
2020.
Resolution 2019-38, a resolution City Council, City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, approving the budget for fiscal year 2020.
I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved by Charlie, seconded by Shelley. Further discussion? Councilor Voorhees.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of budgets in the public sector, and there's never been one that's been perfect. You know, for some reason, you know, they just, at some point, you need to fish or cut bait, and you need to move the process forward. And I think that we put countless hours into this budget. I mean, I guess you could count them, but it just sounds better that I say countless. You know, and it reflects, I think, where we want to go as a city. It, you know, may have some things that we need to work on after we pass the budget, but this isn't the Holy Quran or the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible that we're voting on here tonight. It's a document that is our best shot at meeting statutory requirements that we do have a budget before a certain deadline. I would like to just make one other comment on the budget, and I know that our streets have been an issue for a long time, and I hear it all the time, being from the hood, that these streets are just in deplorable condition. And that's absolutely right. Matt Langhorst put together a 10-year plan to remedy that. And I think that was in the neighborhood of about $56 million, which is about 3 times what our general fund is in this budget over a 10-year period. The vote, unlike the library district, was not successful when we went to the voters to do this. And so I just want to be sure that we all understand that we were able to scrape together about $5.7 million roughly in this budget for 2020 to begin to address some serious street infrastructure problems. We hope that we'll be able to kind of recreate that in the 2021 budget and fix some more deplorable streets, and these are safety hazards. These are streets that don't have adequate sewer. They don't have adequate water right now, and if we had a fire in one of those streets, as our chief could tell you, we'd have a big problem. So the city is being responsible with this $5.7 million I'm talking about, and the possibility of more money next year, but the third year out, there ain't going to be any more money after we take money out of reserve. And I think it's going to be to the leadership of this council to, again, look for alternate sources of money to fix our infrastructure, to fix our streets. Our citizens want that to happen, our neighborhoods want that to happen, and it should be a #1 requirement. So right now, we're in the posture of robbing Peter to pay Paul, in order to make some things happen over the next couple of years. That's not sustainable, and I want to be sure that, you know, we all sort of understand that as we pass this budget tonight. So thank you all for your input. Thank you all for, you know, really caring about what happens in Glenwood. I know that there's sometimes some crazy talk out in some of the discussion boards in the Post-Independent, and unfortunately, most of that is driven by rumor. It's driven by people who have hard feelings that somehow the city is not managing precious resources well. And I can tell you, having gone through this process, again, not a perfect process, that there isn't a person up here who doesn't feel that they put their best work into making this happen for the citizens of Glenwood for 2020. And yes, there'll be some small issues that we need to take a look at going forward, but I think it's a wonderful piece of work, and I want to thank Steve, and I want to thank Yvette, and I want to thank Deborah, who had to sort of herd us together to this point. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And I would suggest that you not read those comments on the Post-Independent. I found that, it just does you no good, really, so.
Yeah, it does no good.
Just some advice from a young buck.
Yeah,
Are you serious,
So in other words,
Jonathan?
we can't have city government by Facebook? Is that what you're saying?
Apparently not.
Oh, okay.
We've been told. Counselor Hershey.
During the street tax fight, I recall you commenting a lot. I would argue, Mr. Voorhees, that the street tax was successful just as 55% of Coloradans voted no on Amendment CC and wanted to keep tax because, frankly, I don't work for the city. I work for the people of Glenwood Springs, and they sometimes, whether they post it on Facebook or not, don't trust government to spend their money properly, which is why we didn't give our state legislature a blank check, and we want our money back. Now, I am very pleased with this budget, and I want to thank particularly Deborah, because we have essentially, as you said, Rick, the same amount of money that would have been raised at this point for street tax. I understand the problems that are coming in the future, and this council, whoever's here in the next 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, is going to have to make some very tough decisions. But going back to the voters and keep saying, well, we can't afford this, give us some more tax money. It worked with the library district, it didn't work with DD and CC. I just think that as the future progresses, if we're in an economic issue, I just think it's fair to keep going back to the taxpayer. So I support this budget. I want to thank everyone. I think they did a great job. But just remind you that, sometimes we have to work within our means, and we can't just continue to tax our way out of problems. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, I'll just have a couple comments. One, I dispute that. I think we can always tax our way out of our problems, Tony.
The voters disagree with you.
I really want to thank staff as well. I just want to recognize the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, which we've gotten every year I've been here and sitting up here on council. Last year, for the first time, we got the CAFR, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. These are third-party certifications and awards that basically say that we are so exceptional as a city about having a budget that is understandable and transparent, that citizens can understand it and readily pick it up and know what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think that is really a Herculean task that you guys are able to do, considering that we have had finance directors for 20, 30 years that have put off converting us from Excel spreadsheets and a DOS-based system to an ERP. This is a multi-year, multi-million-dollar effort that has, it's a massive, massive effort on our staff. We haven't added staff to do this. We've had our contractor who was supposed to be working with us, Plant Moran. We've had to let them go. We're pulling it together by the grit of our teeth, and we were able to put this budget together and win these awards throughout it. So I just can't thank you guys enough for all that you do. Your department is fantastic. So obviously, I will be voting for this as well. And if we don't have any other questions or comments, let's call the question.
Hershey, yes. Stepp, yes. Godes, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right.
The next item is Ben.
Item number 11, ordinance 29, series of 2019, ordinance of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, fixing and certifying the mill levy on the 2019 assessment for collection in fiscal year 2020 for the Glenwood Springs General Improvement District, number 1980, and providing a temporary tax credit.
What?
There's a brief debate
Yeah.
over who is.
Who's coming up? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is just a housekeeping item. We have to certify to the county every year the assessments that they send us and set our mill levies from the assessments from 2019 for collection in 2020. These are just preliminary numbers. They will have the final numbers to us in the next couple weeks, and we will attach those once we get them, but these are certifying them based off of what we have currently.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll open up for public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back for a motion.
I move that we approve ordinance number 29, series of 2019, in ordinance City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, fixing and certifying the mill levy on the 2019 assessment for collection fiscal year 2020 for the Glenwood Springs General Improvement District number 1980, and providing for a temporary tax credit.
I second the motion.
All right, it's been motioned by Charlie, seconded by Shelley. Further discussion? Seeing none, let's call the question.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godas, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, item number 12, is this a similar thing?
This is the same thing. This is just for the regular mill levy.
Okay.
No,
Any
that
public
county.
comment?
For our, pardon?
Sorry.
I was asking the public if there's any public comment. Okay. Charlie?
I move, I move for the passage of ordinance number 30, series of 2019, an ordinance of City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, fixing and certifying the mill levy and the 2019 assessment for collection of fiscal year 2020, providing for a temporary tax credit.
I second the motion.
Motion by Charlie, second by Shelley. All in favor? Sorry, call the question? Sorry. We could-
Wait, what?
Okay.
Call the question.
I thought he said all in favor.
I was going to do that because that would be a lot easier, but
Thank God you're here, Paul.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godas, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
wonderful. All right, item number 13 has been continued at council,
No, I want to talk about that.
our city attorney's request to continue it to a month that starts with
I
J.
think we need an hour of discussion of that policy before we table.
No, I would say 11:30 tonight.
Second, Charlie.
Okay, item number 14, congestion reduction study. Terry, you look fantastic. How do you feel?
So lousy, please
You're
forgive me for my...
congested, ironically?
Sorry, yes,
You're
congestion,
congested.
right. Yes, I am very congested.
Come on.
I apologize for my voice. This is a request to move forward with a contract with Parsons and RAFTA for work that would look at parking and BRT routes through town and evaluation of our intersections, mostly in our downtown core. The parking would be evaluated both in the short term and in the long term, including projects that we have on the books like the, or that we're planning, like the Confluence area. The idea for this study came about with the passage of Destination 2040, RAFTA's property tax initiative that was passed. In that property tax measure, there were a number of projects. One of the, some of the ones that we were, I guess, really interested in, we're interested in all of them because we always appreciate any funding. But, you know, the 27th Street and State Highway 82 pedestrian grade separations, Southbridge, obviously, they've allocated money towards Southbridge. Inline transit stations in the downtown, additional parking at 27th Street, and extending the BRT to downtown Glenwood Springs and adding service on Highway 6 and 24. So one of the reasons why we thought that this was really important to work together with RAFTA and to try to develop kind of a plan together was the idea of having additional parking at 27th Street. You know, we've always wanted to have the BRT parking either on the north side of Glenwood or on the far west side of Glenwood. So that we can reduce congestion across our network, you know, and keep people from driving, you know, from the cities west of us and trying to make it up valley. So we thought that this was a valuable opportunity to participate with them and help to refine those ideas and hopefully, you know, guide some of those parking discussions and hopefully end up with an answer that's a little bit better for Glenwood. I think that's, does the council have any questions?
Just, Terry, I think I understand, but the one part in there talked about the transit center. It said either in the downtown area or north of I-70. Would that include West Glenwood? I'm assuming it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and, you know, the existing Glenwood, they call it the GMF, the Glenwood Maintenance Facility, already has a plan for multi-level parking. So it could be that that structure would be able to serve as a BRT connection. The thing that is difficult for the BRT is to be able to make it through Glenwood. You know, as you guys recognize, you know, our intersections right now are very congested, and so running a BRT service through there with any guarantee of timing to reach an Up Valley destination is one of the reasons why they've been reluctant to bring that on.
Thanks.
Paula?
Terry, just a couple things to jog my memory.
Sure.
The arrangement we made with the, or the arrangement maybe we're working on with the MOC, some of that changes kind of the funding for this that you've put down here, is that correct?
Yes, it would supplement and change that funding. We would use that funding first and then, you know, release some of those other sources back into their funds, our city budget.
Okay. The other one just flew out of my head, so. Thank you.
Rick?
So in deference to the hoarseness in your voice, you can signal with a 1 meaning yes or a 2 meaning no. Will the study look at the impact of electric vehicles and as part of the congestion, but more importantly, the parking issues that we have?
You know, I know...
No, 1 or 2.
Okay. Sorry, that requires some speculation. You know, I know RAFTA's got a keen focus on electric vehicles, as does the city. You know, we've been really interested in bringing electric vehicles on. And in particular, you know, one of the BRT routes is that they want to consider is the Rio Grande Trail. And so RAFTA has already said that, you know, one of the ways that they would like that to make that better is to have an electric vehicle through there and not have a vehicle spewing exhaust. So I know it's on the, you know, in the game plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? If not, public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for further discussion and or motion. Charlie?
Yeah, the Transportation Commission looked at this in an earlier version of it. I don't think they've seen the final version, but I think they felt it was important, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they felt it was important to do this in particular, and that's the reason I asked the question I did, because the idea of keeping a station in West Glenwood versus downtown keeps that many more cars out of downtown, so I want to make sure that's still in there. It sounds like it is, but I think this is going to be helpful, and I know what is on the DDA and Laura left, but looking at parking and things downtown came up at our work session earlier today, but I think it's important. So I would move to approve moving forward with the study, congestion reduction study, in an amount not to exceed $319,555.16.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved by Charlie, seconded by Shelley. Shelley, sub-comment.
Thanks, Terry, for sending the full scope of work
that was very helpful.
out today. That was very helpful because it really helped us to understand better the full robustness and scope for the study that they're really looking into purpose and need and then developing based on the whole history of the area and traffic and everything. So that was very helpful. And I think certainly that full scope of work probably justifies the dollar amount. You know, it's an expensive study. It's not going to be cheap, but luckily we have a good partner in RAFTA, and hopefully it will give us some good insights into some of the changes we can make and the way that we can step up transit and work things like BRT stations and parking areas to kind of start to do some traffic demand management and work on our traffic and level of service at our intersections along Grand Avenue. So I appreciate that. And thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
I'll support this. Thanks.
Thank you. Tony?
All my stories about me, Mr. Mayor, taking a walk, but last night I was walking my dog on Grand, and it was particularly bad. There was also unfortunately a pedestrian, or a car hit a bicyclist, actually.
On Grant?
No, near Park, was it on Grand, or I thought it was in Park West?
No, it's Park
It
West.
was, yeah, in Park West. I wasn't aware of
Grand, even on a good night, especially it just seems with daylight savings time ending and then it's nighttime, is just, it's horrendous. You know, I've been home for an hour and a half and people are stuck in traffic still an hour away from getting home to, you know, Rifle or Newcastle or Silt or wherever they're going. It's just anything that we can do, and to have a partner as great as RAFTA. I wanted to really thank Terry because I know, I looked at what you did, it's really a lot of hard work. So I will support this 100%. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll just call the question.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godes, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for letting me go without too much talking.
Hey, Terry, thank you so much.
Go home and get rest.
Should have put her in the front, actually. Jeez.
It's just ironic that she's congested.
I know. Yep. It was funny the first time. And
It's
better,
still funny.
It was funny the second time, too.
Funny a year from
Item number 15, 27th Street Bridge Construction Management Contract Amendment.
Good evening. I'll try not to touch too many things. So I'm here today. Our construction management team has requested an increase in funding, partially because of the extra work hours that have been demanded of the construction team. All of the construction on the project needs management. We have to have oversight for our CDOT funding. Additionally, we are tracking past our contract date with the construction contract, so there would be additional management past our contract date that's predicted with this amount. We've had extended work weeks and working hours, a lot of overnight shifts that have had to be facilitated for our utility installations and things like that in order to try to reduce traffic impacts. So
Any questions for Jessica? All right. Any comments from the public? I'll bring it back to council for a further discussion and/or motion.
Your Honor, Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Honorable Mayor.
Yes.
I would make a motion to support this ordinance or amendment.
May we modify that in the nature of the staff recommendation, Tony?
Yes, of course.
So it doesn't waive any claims city may have against HDR relating to arising out of the contract?
That's acceptable.
Okay, then I'll second it.
Thank you.
Been moved by Tony, seconded by Charlie. Any other comments? Let's call the question.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godes, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
And I would assume number 16 is a very similar question. Cost?
it is a very similar question. Our design team has had some significant handholding with the contractor. They predicted one or two submittal for each submittal item, and they've had multiple submittals on many items that have caused more oversight, as well as our need for a maintenance manual for the traffic bridge. They're going to develop that at the completion of the project so that our streets crew can maintain the bridge appropriately so that we get a full lifespan out of it.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Jessica? Any comments from the public? I will bring it back to council for comments and/or motion. Charlie.
I move for the approval of additional fees related design services. That's it?
Second. Well, we had a little thing here. You can do the next one.
All right.
Okay, it's been moved by Charlie, seconded by Tony. Any further question or any other comments? Let's call the question.
Sorry. It didn't.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godes, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woman, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
All right, we've addressed resolution 2019-41. We are on to item number 18, ordinance number 28, series of 2019. Ordinance City of Glenwood Springs, amending Title 060, Construction Building Codes and Regulations, first reading.
For what?
Amending building codes and regulations, first reading.
Okay.
Amending building codes and regulations, first reading.
Okay, first reading, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm here this evening to present ordinance number 28, series 2019. Primarily, there are actually two things that are here. Primarily, it's a cleanup. There are a few places in the code that are incorrect. When the code was adopted in 2017, adopting amended international and national codes regarding construction regulations, there was a section that referenced the International Energy Conservation Code rather than the International Fire Code. This ordinance fixes that error. There's also a section that relates to the procedures and fees for sidewalk and curb and gutter construction, and this points correctly to the engineering standards related to that. There are also some changes related to fees. So this ordinance would make the fee for any window replacement $100 because even a like-for-like window replacement requires 2 inspections. Previously, it was $60 for a like-for-like window, so you have a window and you just want to replace it with a more energy-efficient window, but it's the same size and shape. It still requires 2 inspections, and so that's one request. This ordinance would also create a flat fee for solar panel inspection rather than having the fee be based on valuation. So that would be $25 per panel for solar heating systems and $15 per panel for other solar panels. Additionally, it would introduce a fee for the building department to convert documents from paper to digital format. We are kind of moving in the direction of reviewing all the plans in electronic format, and so this would get us there. So we would still accept plans in a printed paper format. However, we would charge this fee to convert them, so there's a little incentive to just provide those to us in a digital format. With that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
So it used to be, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Rick is actually
Sorry,
first.
I apologize.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rick.
No, I would be glad to defer.
No, go
to
ahead.
the
I
hot
am-
prod here, so. Hey, my question, Jen, is a flat fee for solar panel inspection. Do we charge a fee now?
We do. It's based on the project valuation. So
Okay.
this would make it just a flat fee. So
Flat fee per panel.
per panel.
Okay. And then the digital or the paper to digital, is that something that an applicant can do for themselves, or do we feel better about actually touching the paper and putting it through our process?
No, I mean, I think often architects and builders, they have those plans already in electronic format, and they're printing them and bringing them to us in a paper format, and we're just looking to move that to having them submitted digitally.
So do we require a paper format, or do we?
We will
would
accept.
a digital?
We will
instead of
accept
paper?
either, but our preference is moving toward the digital submittal.
Okay.
So people can bring us the building permit or submit it, electronically, but they would bring us a flash drive or, there are other ways that they can get those digital formats to us, but flash drive, I think, is probably one of the most common.
Okay, thank you.
Tony.
So what you're saying is, let's say I want to replace all my windows in my house with energy efficient houses. Prior to this, I have to go through 2 processes?
The building inspector goes out to make sure that, that the window hasn't been, like, when you are changing the windows out, that the header hasn't been cut, or, that the insulation is still correct, those sorts of things. There are 2 inspections, so there's one before they're actually placed, and then there's a final inspection. And so because there's still 2 inspections, we're moving to the $100, which is what we would do for brand new windows. It's essentially the same process. It's just, I think it probably takes the exact same amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to staff for a motion and or comment. Shelley?
Yep. I did have one, sorry, I should have done this during questions, but a comment. I did run the number on the solar panel fee, and it's going to be 1% or less, it looks like, on just the kind of a cost of a system, so it doesn't look like it's significant. But I was a little curious, and did we look what other jurisdictions are doing, or are we kind of in line with those, or?
You know, I base this off the recommendation of the building official. If you want to set this over and have us do a little bit more research, we'd be happy to do that. Or if you wanted to take out just that piece, and we could at least fix the correction related to, you know, the correct, the International Fire Code, and
Yeah.
we can come back if that's what you'd like to do.
No,
I
think
just made a
based on
recommendation based on
the level
what.
of the fee at the $15 per panel, I think is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it comes out to like 5 cents a watt, so it's, it shouldn't be significant on a system. And I kind of been saying that for Councilor Voorhees' understanding of it also. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2019-28 on the construction building codes and regulations.
Second that.
Second.
Been moved by Shelley, tried to second by Rick, but actually seconded by Paula.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's rope a dope there, Rick.
You couldn't be seconded by anybody better than Paula.
I see your, was that to make a motion, Rick? Your light?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm done.
Any further comments? Let's call the question.
Hershey, yes. Step, yes. Godas, yes. Kaup, yes. Voorhees, yes. Woolman, yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, report from city administration.
I don't think I told you we were going to get you handy dandy laminated. This is what we've done on streets 2018 and 2019. Can you get them?
These are they waterproof? Oh.
Yes.
So if they fall in the snow.
Good job, Sarah. This has you all over it.
Did she laminate them or did you?
No, she laminated them. I don't even know where the laminating machine is.
I need to.
Deborah, can we send this out? Sarah, can we send this out as a press release to the paper? I don't know if they'll care, but I think that this is a story that I think a lot of our citizens would like to hear, or would be well informed if they would want to cover it.
I know Mr. Bennett is listening. He's here, but he's listening. But, so he's aware.
Okay.
And maybe we could make sure.
Very nice.
And I'm sorry I just directed your staff, Deborah. Deborah, could we have your new PIO send this out to?
Yes, we could.
Okay.
And we can get you more copies if you would like. We just kind of thought we can do the laminated one, see if you liked it.
That's cool.
Very handy. Thank you.
You can carry it with you anywhere, right? See, Kathy Crocker?
There were too many to put them, like, we kind of originally thought like small, but you can't.
Can you make these on a business size card?
Okay, boards and commissions. It is that time of year to decide how you want to handle board and commission interviews in that, because you have a whole bunch coming up, and with the new schedule, there's no way you can do it and hold a work session unless you do a special meeting, which we're happy to do a special meeting so you guys can do board and commission interviews. We just need that direction. And for new council members, I don't know if we've talked about this yet, this is a hotly debated topic every year of, do we do board and commission interviews? Do you do a subcommittee? And council is always falling back on, we want to interview everyone.
I personally, I'll just speak for myself, I would be fine with having a subcommittee of people who wanted to, either a subcommittee that wanted to do all of them, or as long as we had, I would hope maybe 3 of us per commission that would do interviews.
Read by you?
Yes, I would have to be on every one, right?
You do, sort of.
No,
don't
not
you?
really. That's just my preference.
But what about Jonathan splitting it up, maybe?
Would our,
Like, so everyone doesn't have to go to every, or all 3 people wouldn't have to go to everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Like
suggesting.
3 and 3.
Or just have sign-up sheets for each one.
The liaisons who are on those commissions be
Right.
part of that
Oh,
board
that's-
interview.
Yeah.
yeah.
I hereby resign.
Important.
Is there a desire to have a minimum of, say, 3 people, or do we think that 2 people?
If you do just 2, it doesn't have to be a meeting.
Oh,
It's a good,
that's nice.
like that idea.
And that,
I vote that the mayor and Councilman Hershey are
The only
board
Assign
board
it.
two. Kidding.
Can we have it at dinner?
Could we have, like, sign-up sheets go out for us to sign up for these?
That's not gonna work.
Why?
No one will sign up.
Not everybody's you, Tony.
We can give it a try, and if it doesn't work, bring it back to the next meeting.
Sure.
Sure. And what if we plan on it being the liaison and alternate, if there is an alternate? Otherwise, the liaison and the mayor can do the.
I'd like the liaison and alternate.
As long as
The mayor can't make it, the mayor pro tem could go.
That's right.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, so we could figure that out. Okay?
Okay, sign up sheet, we will send it out.
Great.
Okay, and then, Steve, did you want to
Wait a
in
minute,
here?
Deborah, hold on a second. I think we suggested that the representative, the liaison, and the alternate be that, so we don't get into that.
Okay, then no sign-up sheet required?
Yeah.
There might be, because a number do not have an alternate.
Okay.
We can figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Like the fire board, for example.
You don't get it. If they're elected, so you don't get it.
Oh, darn.
Broadband?
I know. I'm like a movie star up here on camera. Just want to let you guys know that we think we're probably going to go out to bid in the next couple of weeks for financing for broadband to see what our options are, what money's available, what we'll have to pay, what the terms are going to be, that kind of stuff. So just a heads up that you'll probably see that come out.
State what funding source, if you're going to finance it, what funding source?
Electric fund. It'll become its own enterprise fund shortly.
I just couldn't remember the source, but when you said that, I remembered. Okay,
Revenues and electric fund.
Thank you.
Good news.
Great.
And then I just wanted to thank you all very much for your patience through the budget process. I know it was hard, I know it didn't line up, and it was messy, and it was imperfect, but thank you. And thank you very much to Yvette and Steve and to all of our department heads who pushed through. I mean, Yvette and Steve, I'm very happy you're still talking to each other after you spent 2 months in a little tiny room. Now they're at least locked in a slightly bigger room together doing ERP.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Deborah, you maybe could summarize where we're at with Two Rivers Park and pedestrian access as we talked about a little
Yes.
bit earlier. This was discussed at the aforementioned Imagine Glenwood meeting, but I think it'd be good for people that weren't there and our viewers at home maybe to hear that. So.
There is a fence up along the construction site. We're not, people can walk along the fence. We're not encouraging it. We're not telling them no. We have let the business owners who are very interested know. I don't think it's being widely used, but it is there and it is a path.
It is there. Okay.
It is definitely not ADA compliant.
Good.
But it's temporary.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move we table item 19B.
I second that.
Yep.
I'm kidding. That was totally tongue-in-cheek.
I know.
And Guy, just, if I may actually have something. I am hopeful that hopefully at the next meeting or the meeting following, I will be able to report to you that we have completed getting all of the stipulations in the RACD case. I think we're wrapping up the last 3 right now. So we're really there. I was just on the phone with Mark Hamilton last night talking through the last details on a couple of the outstanding ones, so I'm super excited about that.
That's fantastic.
The RICD, the water feature water case, it's been a long slog, and so we're almost there, and I'm feeling like we're going to get it across the finish line. So,
Do you enjoy doing water legal work? Water law?
yeah, it's like 50% of my practice.
Yeah, but you like enjoy it.
Yeah,
right?
I do.
It's sort of like fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Kind of a water attorney.
Yeah, I'm kind of water attorney, kind of water geek. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good work,
Thank you,
Carl. Good work,
Yes.
Carl.
Yeah, and that's actually not me. That's Mark Hamilton and his team. But that has been 5-6 years now.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Very quickly, I've been informed by my very enthusiastic staff, there's going to be night work at 27th Street Bridge tonight. Overnight.
So are you planning on sleeping?
Is it closed east or west, starting when?
Tonight they're working westbound
They have to put in some deep utility structures on either end of the bridge, and then they'll open it back up tomorrow morning between 6 and 9 a.m. so that we can get the commuter traffic through, and then they'll shut it back down westbound for the weekend.
I just need to know if do I need to take Midland home tonight versus Grand Avenue?
You can go eastbound, you just can't go westbound.
Okay.
Where? I thought you go west,
Take Midland.
I thought you go westbound, not eastbound, is what I thought I saw.
Yeah, and so everyone will be toward to 8th Street after 9 a.m. Friday through Monday morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then again,
It's amazing how hard they've been working as the deadline approaches.
they have another crew out there.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of people, a lot of activity.
Just don't keep your boss up all night because she gets crabby.
Oh, jeez. Whoa.
Well, we all do without sleep, right?
Generally good-natured.
Oh, well, yes, of
Through the whole
course.
thing?
That wasn't a generalized statement.
Yeah, not generally.
Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Incorrectly logged out, but you don't care.
Meeting adjourned.
It's 8:05.